Welcome to Analog Stick, a PlayStation 2 podcast, the podcast where every month we do a deep dive on one PlayStation 2 title. You can find us on podcast platforms as Analog Stick, as well as a video version of our podcast on our YouTube channel, Joystick. I'm your host, Clayton, and here's Johnny.
Totally tubular, bro.
Was that one of the voice lines? Was that Mikey?
I don't know. I'm sure that's something that they've said at some point, right?
It sounded close to something that Mikey said. I think Here's Johnny was the most grating because it seemed very obnoxious.
Yeah, every 2 seconds.
To say like 50 times throughout the course of one level.
The same way every time.
A little bit of housekeeping about the show. We just crossed 1,000 downloads on podcast platforms.
Yay!
So just counting podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts for like the 2 people that have maybe listened to us on Google Podcasts. 1,000 downloads in total. So 10 episodes, 1,000 downloads. I mean, that's like Joe Rogan level of listenership. So,
yeah, we're catching up, Joe. Look out.
Yeah, watch out. But yeah, if you lump in the YouTube views, that's like 1,700. So our little show is reaching people, Morgan. How does that make you feel?
I expected to maybe get like 5 ever.
I think 5 was optimistic.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting anybody to find us ever. And I thought we would just be talking to each other and nobody else. Yeah, if you've been listening, we appreciate you. And thank you.
I imagine most people like check out the show and it doesn't stick for them. But like, I think we have like 30 followers on Spotify.
Okay.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
Glad there's a handful of people who are like, oh, I like these fucking idiots.
these two goobers in their mid-20s or whatever doing their thing.
The Jack and Daxter episode did not turn them off completely.
Yeah. Since we've kind of bashed on what I think is probably a beloved favorite of a lot of people. Oops, sorry.
Probably one of the favorite. I didn't hate, I don't know. I haven't that's the one episode that I kind of like don't want to re-listen to.
Oh, well, I think doesn't it start with like, doesn't one of us burp? Like in the first like 3 seconds, I'm pretty sure.
I think you burp on the intro if I remember right. Yeah, I think that was it.
Okay.
You're like, oh, let me get my human noises out of the way.
Right.
Like just in the middle of the intro. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
Well, to be fair, I know I mentioned like us like crapping all over Jack and Daxter. That is still probably one of the best games we've played so far compared to everything else.
I don't want to like open the store so soon.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be opposed to revisiting any game that we've already talked about at any point.
Yeah.
Like specifically that one. But
yeah,
let me save that for later.
Right.
It's not going to be that much better if we do it now.
Let us get through another, I don't know, year's worth of games probably.
Yeah. I think the only thing that annoys me about that is that it's far and away our most viewed episode. So it's like a lot of people's like introduction to the show, and it was our second episode.
Yeah, which that's not great.
We didn't really think about too deeply at the time, I don't think.
No.
Yeah. I think it has like 500 views out of our 1,000.
Okay.
So,
well,
there's that. Great. I don't remember it being that bad, but it's like still our second episode. I know that it's like, I think it outsold like Ratchet and Clank, definitely Sly Cooper, which surprises me because I feel like both those games are more closely tied to the PS2 than Jack is. But
yeah, well, and I'm sure like Ratchet and Clank has definitely beaten out Jack and Daxter now since it's still making games, or Insomniac has not abandoned them yet.
Yeah, and I feel like just even at the time, both those games had more going on than Jack did. Not that I think Jack's bad. I think Jack's probably one of the better games on the PS2 still.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I just prefer those two. All right. What were we talking about? 1,000 downloads.
Yeah, that too. And we need to talk about how I am a fucking liar. I'm a liar, pants on fire. So last episode, the James Bond episode, we were like, oh, hey, what other...
Call of Duty.
Oh, no, it was Call of Duty. Oh my God. I don't even... it's like it never even happened. Both of us, you were drunk. No, not entirely drunk. So you were a little drunk.
I'm not going to drink again. That was a bad idea. I thought it would make me funnier. It made me slur all my words together. The podcast, so it turned out okay, but I had to cut out a lot of stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, so sorry. For the Call of Duty episode, we were trying to talk about what other first-person shooters with a campaign we've played. And the only one I could come up with, the only, 2? Was it
You said Overwatch, and you're like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Overwatch and Halo Combat Evolved. I am fairly certain I mentioned Halo.
Maybe.
I lied. I straight up lied. I just any video game that I had ever played was just evacuated. It fled from my brain. It was gone.
It really took me off guard in the moment because I was like, how have you...
Yeah, it was like,
you're claiming to have not played a first-person shooter?
This just doesn't sound right. Yeah. After staring at the shelf in my office where we have been recording that has some of these games visible on them, we have come up with a list of things that I have played, those of which are Far Cry 5, yeah. Definitely first-person shooter, definitely has a campaign. Fallout 4, kind of, it's more first-person shootery than it is an RPG, I would say.
Or opposite of that?
Or, yeah, for a Fallout game, it's way more of a first-person shooter with the campaign compared to the previous Fallout games, yeah. New Vegas and Fallout 3, we're both counting those because first-person and shooting and a campaign. Borderlands 1, 2, and 3... it's stupid because Clayton and I no-lifed Borderlands 3 when it came out, like the week it came out. And then I don't think we touched it since.
No, I bought into the... I mean, I love Borderlands 2 so much. I bought like the Game of the Gold edition, or whatever it was that came with like all the DLC. And then like I binged the game so hard. I played like probably I think like 48 hours in the first week.
That sounds right.
Then I finished and I never came back to the game after that.
Yep. I remember you and our friend Cody helping me scum my way through some boss fights because there was like a certain thing with like a gun that would damage the boss on every frame and it was like insane.
Yeah. I impulsively obsessed over that game.
Yeah.
Like to the most I ever have over any game. So.
Yeah, it was a lot within a short amount of time, and then we never went back to it. But yeah, so played Borderlands, BioShock, played a bit of BioShock. I think I only got to the first boss, so I didn't like, I don't know if I would really count that one, but it's there. And then Destiny 2, which I think that counts, right?
That definitely counts.
Okay. So those I do have some first person shooters under my belt, and I'm a dirty liar. So my bad.
Yeah, that was strange. I mean, Overwatch alone, like though it's not a first person shooter with a campaign, that's like a first person shooter which you've poured days into. So
yes, that too.
That's the credibility in some sense. But
whatever. And another thing that's just like piles onto the stupidity is that not only have I played Far Cry 5 and a bunch of Fallout games, I run a blog that makes content for like fan content for those games. So it's like there's no excuse for me to have forgotten that, but I don't know, man.
It's constantly something that you're engaging with.
Yes, and I just was like, oh, what? Well,
never played that anything like that before.
I never played a game like this. Call of Duty, guns.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
I was still surprised that you hadn't played a Call of Duty game. That feels like something just everyone has played at least a little bit of.
So you know how like when Twilight came out, right? And there were like the girlies that were like obsessed over Twilight, Team Edward, Team Jacob, and blah blah. And then there was like the reactionary crowd where they're like, oh, I fucking hate Twilight. Call of Duty is the Twilight of games for me, where I just kind of decided to hate it for a long time for no real reason. Just cause.
I mean, I feel like Call of Duty, especially now, I played a lot of Call of Duty, but it was mainly the multiplayer, and the multiplayer just appeals to like the ADHD of like these young gamers and myself, where it's just like you're never dead. Basically, you're dead for like a millisecond, and then you're just back into it, and you're like 2 feet away from shooting somebody again. It's just like a constant dopamine rush of like guitar stings and explosions. But the campaigns, though they are still very like easily digestible action movie campaigns, action movie movies just turned into like a video game campaign. I really like them, especially the early ones. They're like kind of, I don't know if it's a nostalgic thing, but like I felt like they were solid like war plots, and it was pretty engaging from that aspect. Anyway,
I don't disagree with you, and after like the first one, I'm excited to try Are there any more on the PS2? I don't remember.
Yeah, there's two. There's Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty 2 Big Red one, and then Call of Duty 3.
The Big Red one.
And the
Okay.
Big Red one is like that's either a battle or a group of people. So it was like kind of a spin-off of Call of Duty 2 developed by Treyarch, which was like kind of brought on to, co-develop at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I swear to God, all the Call of Duty games going forward are better than the first one. They're like enjoyable World War II sort of stories. So the first one sucks.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that. So I'm sorry to put you through that.
Well, now we know. Well, it's fine. No, I still had fun.
I didn't have fun, so I'm glad you did.
I could save state scum, so.
I feel like I've picked, we don't really go back and forth necessarily anymore. Like as far as picking games, as we haven't like stuck to that as much as we tried to in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the games you've picked have largely been great.
Tulip.
Or interesting.
Well,
Tulip, I want to do a ranking of like the games we've played.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do it like for like the 1 year sort of.
Yeah, that would be a
thing
good idea.
as like a separate episode, but I would rank Tulip higher than maybe I should.
Just because it was charming. It was just kind of charming.
Most interesting bad game that we've played.
That's true. Yeah. Oni was a bad game.
Mm-hmm.
Tulip was a good bad game. Does that make sense?
Yes,
I think it should.
And Call of Duty, bad game. What other stinker did I
Call
pick?
of Duty was bad, but not as bad as Oni was bad.
Yeah. I've had the two. I think I've had the lowest points of the podcast, with being Oni, and maybe Call of Duty is lower than any of your picks.
Well, I do have some stinkers in my folder of PS2 games that I could whip out at any time. I just
we need to even it out.
Yeah,
we need to dive into that. We're going to be doing some amazing games in 2023. So we need to balance that one out.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, are you ready to move on to other happenings?
Rabbi Bill Clinton?
Yes. This will probably be such an incredibly outdated joke by the time this episode airs, like a month later to when we're recording this, but I would like to dedicate this next segment to my Reformed Orthodox Rabbi Bill Clinton. Morgan, I'm kind of curious on your thoughts on the Game Awards for 2022. Have you ever, you seemed like you were watching throughout the entire show, I assume with Sage.
Yes.
But had you ever seen the Game Awards before this?
No, I don't think I've actually sat down and watched them live. I think I've watched highlights of them before, but specifically when I watched the highlights, it was never the awards being presented. It was always people's reactions to ads that were aired during the game. So-and-so YouTuber. Yeah. I know they're like a Kingdom Hearts YouTuber, for example. And this year they announced a Kingdom Hearts game, so I'm going to watch my Kingdom Hearts YouTuber freak out over the new game. That sort of thing. Yeah, no, it's not, I don't really pay attention.
Yeah, the Game Awards feels more like a marketing event, an E3 sort of thing.
Yeah.
Than a proper award show.
Right. Well, when I was watching with Sage, I don't know, Sage kind of cared because he really liked Elden Ring a lot, and I didn't play any of the games that were nominated this year. But I was watching the ads like a hawk because I wanted an update from BioWare about Dragon Age or Mass Effect, and I didn't get either one, so I'm bummed. Anyway.
I mean, I didn't watch it. Honestly, E3 is to the point where it used to be something I was super interested in, watching the week that E3 presentations were happening, but I'm kind of to the point where I just want to read a list of the things that were announced as opposed to sit through an hour and a half of such and such random crap is coming to Game Pass.
Animal was there. The Muppet Animal. He was my favorite part of the whole thing. He was there.
And Al Pacino was there, apparently.
He stressed me out really bad because it's this man does not know what he's talking about.
Yeah, it seemed it honestly seemed like I missed out on some shenanigans. The Bill Clinton kid and the God of War acceptance speech, I think, went on for a long time.
Yeah, it was the dude, he was clearly very emotional and cared a lot, and I'm glad that he won it because, you know, and it seemed like something that was like very important to him. But yeah, he was up there forever. And I was like, are they gonna like have to pull him down or like, you know, like eventually they started playing music and I think they were trying to like play him like off the stage, like, okay, here's the inspirational music, Andrew's speech, come on. And I was kind of like, well, this is very stressful just because I get anxious about those sorts of things.
Yeah, that seems I'm like imagining working as like someone during like the live, like in the control room for that.
Oh yeah.
We're running out of time. You like see like this clock where you have like a rough estimate of like how long each segment is going to go, and if you're just in the red, you're like minus 5 minutes in the red.
Right,
it's like,
right.
We gotta do something.
Or also like I want to know what the control room was like when the Bill Clinton kid walked up on stage and they were like, wait a minute, who is that on stage?
So that really confused me. I was talking to some people at work about this because we've all worked live events before and stuff. But we've never done like an award show, obviously. And I was always kind of under the impression that award shows, like the winners were known to the people producing the show. That's what I was always under the assumption of. Like the people producing the show need to know how the show's going to run.
Yeah.
So therefore they know who wins what award.
Right.
That's my thought process, at least. I'm not even sure if that's true because of like that whole La La Land situation.
Yeah, and it could be a source of like leaks. Like you don't want somebody to leak the results of the show before it airs, you know?
I get that, but I feel like people high up, like the producer and stuff like that, should be aware. But anyway, yeah, I was surprised that they didn't cut the mic. Like,
yeah, immediately. Yeah.
It was just like as soon as Miyazaki or his translator finished talking, just like, yep, we're cutting the mic because, you know, people are going to start walking around and stuff. Yeah, they left that on for, I guess they literally just thought that, I think that he appeared to the crew almost as a member of the team.
Well, yeah, that's what I thought.
I don't know.
Because like, I remember like seeing the camera kind of like pan over them all standing up there. And I thought, who's that kid? Because like he was like clearly way younger than everybody else that was like on the stage, and I'm like, is he just part of like the posse or something, or maybe he's like one of those two like men? Is he like their son or something? I didn't know.
There's like a clip of him like patting them on the back as they're walking up.
Yeah,
and I feel like that made him appear to the developers as like someone, like a member of staff. Potentially. I think that the staff potentially thought that, or was like aware that he wasn't supposed to be there and he was crashing it, but we're like, well, if we take him away now, we make a scene and kind of ruin the moment, or we could just let this play out and maybe it won't ruin the moment.
Yeah, that's a very hard call to make, very hard gamble.
I think that makes sense, like on their part, if that was the thought process. Yeah, I'm just surprised that like that wasn't like planned out or known or anything. But
yeah, well, and also apparently, so what I've heard about the kid is, and I don't know, I haven't fact checked any of this myself, so don't like take it with a grain of salt, but I've heard that he's like one of those like InfoWars conspiracy goobers.
That's funny.
Not necessarily, I don't think he's necessarily like a big voice in that community, but like has made appearances on some things involved with that, I think, or was like a part of that audience.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, that's weird because he just kind of seemed like a troll.
Yeah, and also like he got arrested for it afterwards, right? And it's like, what? Why? But like, why did you? It's just so pointless. I don't know.
It is funny. Like it feels like a very appropriate kind of stunt to be pulled at the Game Awards.
Yeah, it was relatively harmless. It's just kind of confusing.
Yeah, like some dude like basically shit posting live.
Right. Exactly.
Microphone.
Yeah. Yeah.
The real reason that I wanted to bring up the Game Awards is to just kind of discuss like what purpose a video game award show should serve, at least like how we think it should be operated. So obviously the Jeff Keighley Game Awards are the biggest game award show that exists for video games, but there's also the DICE Awards, which I believe are more focused towards like developers and like actual like the technical side of video games. I kind of wish there was more of an emphasis on that sort of thing. because that's what I'm more interested in. The Game Awards 100% just kind of comes off as like marketing to me.
Yeah, and also like and I don't know how you would fix this. So are the Game Awards nominees selected by like the audience, or is there like a board of some kind somewhere? You know, like how like the film awards kind of do it?
I believe it's a board
Okay.
of like reviewers and other industry like media people
Okay.
that like vote on and nominate the people. I really hate I hate this with like all award shows, but I hate the politics of like, we're going to give Elden Ring Game of the Year, but God of War was like our second. So we're going to give God of War like 20 awards leading up to that.
Yeah. And also it's like, okay, you have like all of these video games, right? And you have all of these categories to like encompass all these different aspects about games. And yet you're going to have like the same 5 games nominated for every single award. Like that just doesn't.
Yeah.
It's like frustrating to me because it's like, okay, can we like showcase something else? Because like there's more going on than these 5 games. I don't know.
I'm going to look up the past Game of the Year winners.
Okay. Wasn't last year It Takes Two?
It was.
Okay.
And honestly, after playing It Takes Two.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
You get it? Yeah.
That game was like one of the most unique games that I had ever played. Like there's not a ton of like really, really, really good co-op experiences. And that is like, it's just such like a new thing that I can totally get why people were like really into it. Like, because before that, the best co-op thing I've played is like the co-op campaign for Portal 2. Because that was like this asymmetrical thing where you like have to work together to solve puzzles and stuff. I feel like most co-op games are just kind of, you know, couch co-op party stuff where everyone's doing the same thing.
Mario Party.
Yeah, Mario Party and stuff like that. Like a versus sort of thing. This was like, I really encourage you and Sage to play it since you guys got
I think he
2
bought
gamers.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really fun thing to play. I was surprised that I was able to play through it with Claire because I heard that it was like more of a gamery game.
Yeah.
But she was able to make it through.
Oh, good.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, I pulled up a list of previous Game of the Year winners. 2014 was Dragon Age Inquisition.
I think I knew that. Yeah. That's a great game,
so that's
though.
a big budget RPG.
Yep.
That was 2014 though. 2014 sucked.
Oh, it did.
So the other nominees were Bayonetta 2, Dark Souls 2, Hearthstone, and Shadow of Mordor, which were just kind of like, those are like okay. Those are solid like releases, but not like anything really, really consequential.
Yeah.
Like Dark Souls is like the least liked. Dark Souls 2 is like
2,
the least
yeah,
liked Dark Souls game. Hearthstone 2015 was Witcher 3.
Not surprised.
Which, cool. Went up against Bloodborne, Fallout 4, Super Mario Maker. Okay. That's not really a game. That's more like a tool, if I'm honest.
It was really popular.
It's a strange thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool. Like, I think it's worth winning something, but like...
Maybe not Game of the Year.
Super Mario Maker for the Wii U was not like a game in the traditional sense.
Right.
So, that's strange. 2016, I don't know if you know this, was Overwatch. So...
Well,
I mean, I definitely played it the most out of everything on this list.
Yeah.
It was up against Doom, Titanfall 2, Uncharted 4. I think Overwatch was like a pretty consequential and unique. I say unique. It's derivative of like other hero shooters, but
it was at the top of the hero shooter situation at the time.
It just did it very well, and people were still very high on Blizzard at this point. 2017, Breath of the Wild.
Okay, not surprised. None of these are surprising.
Man, that was a good year. We had Breath of the Wild, which won, but Horizon Zero Dawn, Persona 5, PUBG.
Ew, no.
And,
you can't, no.
Super Mario Odyssey. There is a clear outlier in that list.
Okay, I'm sorry. So during the Game Awards this year, there was like an ad for PUBG Mobile, and it was the most garbage looking hot mess of a game ever. But
it's somehow gotten worse. Like in my head, I'm like, it was really bad when I played it, but it wasn't that bad.
It still looks like ass, yeah.
It looks so bad now.
But the ad was for like, hey, we have this special promotion going on where if you have PUBG Mobile and you use this like thing to order like $15 worth of Wendy's through, was it DoorDash or Grubhub? We'll give you this like DoorDash or Grubhub skin for your truck. And it's like...
That's like a Call of Duty level promotion.
Yeah.
It feels like.
I also think, I was like, okay, it would be kind of funny to run somebody over with a Grubhub truck, like in game. But I don't know.
Oh,
it's just a weird...
They should have given you a player skin that was that one dancing dude from the Grubhub commercial.
Oh, yeah, that would have been so good. The one that everybody hates. Yes.
Mm-hmm. That'd be good. That feels like the level of like shitty internet meminess that PUBG has kind of become.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They tried to like... It seems like they've tried to like Fortnite it a little bit, where they're like, oh, Fortnite makes an assload of money by doing all these like brand integrations. Maybe we should try that in our realistic military sim game. Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. I don't want to harp on this for too much longer, but 2018 was God of War. Should have been Celeste. 2019 was Sekiro.
Okay.
Again, pretty good games following up. 2020 was Last of Us Part 2, which I think was a big pain point for a lot of people because should have been Hades. 2021 was It Takes Two.
Okay, yeah, right.
So, cool. It went up against... Yeah, I think It Takes Two was the best out of that list. Deathloop, Metroid Dread, Psychonauts, Ratchet & Clank,
Ratchet & Clank?
Resident Evil Village.
Oh, it was? Oh. I'm surprised Resident Evil didn't. I don't know. I feel like I heard way more about that than It Takes Two, but whatever.
I feel like It Takes Two had this, like... Because of the voting committee, I feel like it has a newness sort of thing going for it, where, like, amongst the critics who vote on stuff, I feel like they're more prone to vote on something that has not been done recently.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas even if like the general audience, like if the general audience, like we took like polled all of gamers for all this, it would just be Fortnite every year. But so I understand like, oh, we're going to focus on like critics and stuff. I feel like it should go one way or the other.
Yeah.
Like we should focus on like critics, developers, or just leave it completely open to fan voting.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. Yeah.
What was my original point? I don't even know.
I gave you a thumbs up as if anybody in the audience could see that, so whatever.
I don't know. I'm not too hot on the Game Awards. How long was it? It was like an hour.
It felt like it went on forever. Yeah, it was very long.
I can't remember. I thought I heard someone say 3 hours. That feels impossibly long.
We also watched the pre-show thing without realizing that we were watching the pre-show. Oh, whoever was writing the girl in the pink fluffy dress, I love the dress. Whoever was writing her jokes, I was like, oh my God, somebody help her. Because they were not good. It's just cringy.
I think that a proper Game Awards would be cut down. I would like no advertisements. I'm basically making a horribly impossible to monetize show.
Yeah.
For like purity reasons. But my ideal Game Awards is like a couple different categories and then like Game of the Year, and that's it. Because I don't know, I'd be curious like what percentage of this show as it stands now is just announcements.
Oh, it was mostly, I would say like 80%. Well, and they did have like some performances, so they had an orchestra.
They had performance.
Yeah, Hosier was there. Hosier, I don't know however you're supposed to say.
I don't know.
Halsey was there.
Why?
To sing game music and to entertain us. They did good. Like it was good and it was kind of neat. And then they had the orchestra go, and it did like a melody of all the like the Game of the Year nominee soundtracks. Like it did like a melody of that. And there was this one guy that was going absolutely bonkers on the flute. He's so talented. No, sorry, I take it back. It was a piccolo. Well, I think he like was like swapping out instruments, and he was just, you could like see his hair like flying. He was just going to town. It was good.
That sounds cool.
That guy and Animal were my two favorite parts of the show.
I guess that's why they're there
to appeal to people like me.
But yeah, Jeff Keighley, I know you're listening to this. Let's tone it down a bit. It's getting a little bloated, don't you think? Animals there, Al Pacino's there. What is he doing? Come on. Yeah. Let's bring it. Let's come back down to earth here.
Pedro Pascal was there. Sorry.
Just to promote.
Yeah, The Last of Us show. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, I guess that's video game adjacent.
is.
So fine. That's all I have to say.
All right. Shall we move on to the game?
Let's get into the game.
All right. So the game that we played this month is TMNT. I think it's just straight up TMNT. Is there any subtitle or anything like that?
No, it would honestly be helpful if there was a subtitle.
I know.
To
it's hard to look it up.
Not have to like put in parentheses the game.
Yes.
Every time we talk about it. But,
right.
Yeah.
But to understand TMNT and what these Turtle Boys are all about, we're gonna have to go back to the 80s. Okay. So I'm just going to give you like a brief rundown of the history of the franchise. So the TMNT franchise, it started as like a comic book made by two artists, Eastman and Laird, in 1984. A few things interesting about the comic book compared to the franchise and like the way we know the Turtles today is that they weren't originally differentiated by color. There were four of them. I'm pretty sure there were just four of them still, but they all looked the same. Like they had the same like color masks and everything. And
one second. Were they called the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles in the original?
I don't know. I didn't actually ever read anything about that. Is that something that you saw?
No, I just heard about it once. I think it is just a UK thing.
Okay, that could be.
They're called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles in the UK. I didn't know if that was like the original thing. I do remember hearing that they were like much darker in their origins, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, they were the like art style was decently gritty. There was more like violence. I don't remember seeing any like gore in any of the panels, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was like blood and stuff like that.
Because they do have bladed weapons. So.
Correct. Indeed. And Shredder, the main nemesis of the Turtles, was actually killed off in the very first comic. And then following that, a lot of like the more like modern takes on the franchise have taken like the main concepts, especially like for the villains and stuff from those original comics, and obviously like toned it down a little bit for the kiddos, made it a little bit less violent, a little bit less bloody, angry, whatever.
There's so many like iterations of the Turtles at this point.
Yes.
There's some extremely like docile looking versions of them.
Correct.
Where they're just like dopey little rounded men.
So going forward from the comics, the franchise was really built around, at least like in like the 90s, early 2000s, it was really built around the ability to sell toys. So like you wanted to have the animated show because it could tie into like the toys and marketing the toys and getting that sweet merchandise money. So sorry, I have in my notes, I forgot I wrote this, that it's sort of like My Little Pony except for boys, because My Little Pony also does a similar thing where they like reboot the franchise every like decade or so. Except there's not a big predominantly female audience lusting after the Turtles like there are many boys lusting over those ponies.
Yeah, we're not trying to fuck the Turtles. Well, have you seen those ponies, to be fair?
That's all I'm saying. They're animals with big round heads. I don't feel any sort of way aside from anyway, so throughout each iteration of the franchise, there are several things that stay consistent, and these consistencies still mostly apply to this version of the Turtles, I guess. So I'll go through those really quick. So there are four turtle brothers. That's really hard to say, Turtle Brothers.
Turtle Brothers.
Yeah. And they're named after Renaissance artists. So you have Leonardo, and his personality is that he has a blue mask. He's responsible. He's the leader of the turtle, and I think he's kind of referred to as like the oldest.
I think he is, yes.
Yes, and he has two swords. They are not katanas. They are something else, but I don't remember what they're called.
No, I think they are katana. Let me pull up the... it was brought up in the manual.
Okay. I thought they were called something else.
Yeah, we are now reading the manuals because we have found out that there is often very valuable...
lore in there.
Usually it tells you how to play the game and stuff like that.
That too.
So, yeah, Leonardo, the oldest, the leader, disciplined, serious, and deadly.
Oh, he's deadly.
In the TMNT manual,
okay,
it states that his weapons are dual katanas.
Okay, because I've heard them called something different that I think also started with a K. I don't remember.
There's a good chance the manual is incorrect. Like, I wouldn't be surprised.
That could be. So then there's also Donatello. He is purple. He is intelligent and technical and just all around a big fucking nerd. Mm-hmm. And he has a bow staff.
I would say a bit more sheepish than the other ones, too.
Yeah. Well, there's like things about their personality that kind of don't stick between franchises. I watched the like original, I think it was 1990 movie, or was it in the 80s? I don't remember.
The live action one?
Yes.
Okay.
And Donatello, I wouldn't really call him sheepish in that movie.
I guess that's true. In that one, they're all a little bit on crack the entire.
Yeah. And like Leonardo in that movie, he's not responsible. He's dicking around as much as the others are. It's like
they're all a bit too Michelangelo.
They're all goofballs, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we have, well, there's Michelangelo, Orange, carefree, hip with the kids.
Skateboarding.
Skateboards, has the cool slang, the cowabungas, the totally tubulars, and he fights with nunchucks. And then we have Raphael. He's edgy, angry, the loner. He's red. Did I say red?
Of course.
No, I didn't put his color down, but he's red because red, angry. You know what I'm saying? And he has sais, which are like these big forks that are flipping the bird all the time, which I think is very appropriate for him. And then there's Splinter. Splinter is the turtles' rat dad, and he was mutated by the same radioactive ooze that mutated the turtles, and he knows the way of the ninja. Yes.
When you wrote that down, I was like, you know what? I never really thought about it. He's just
the
like
rat
some sort of
dad.
sensei for no reason,
Yes.
which is a little stupid to never have. Yeah, I guess it makes sense. Just don't question these things for a kids show, but yeah,
Yes.
it's pretty funny.
Yes. And then there is Shredder, the nemesis, who is some like he has like this like crazy samurai looking helmet, and he hates Splinter and the turtles for some reason. I don't know if the reason stays consistent, but in the original live action movie, the reason is Splinter, when he was a pet rat, attacked Shredder and scarred his face up, and he just has this grudge.
So we're the instigators in this whole like
Splinter
conflict.
is the instigator. Well, to be fair, Shredder showed up, killed Splinter's owner and his wife, I think, and then tried to kill Splinter. And then Splinter was
never
like,
mind. I
"Ah."
take it back.
Yeah.
I take
So Shredder is the instigator still, but
Okay.
Shredder has a grudge against the rat for scratching his face off. I don't know. Anyway, there's also April O'Neil. In some versions, she is like a news reporter, and she's friends with the turtles somehow. How that comes about, I don't know every single time. And then there's Casey Jones. He's a vigilante dude that fights with sports equipment. And he's,
Love him.
Yeah, he's best buds with Raphael, and they do vigilante justice together. And then there's the Foot. That's Shredder's ninja gang. And I think they just mostly do petty crime from what from what I've seen.
Can you imagine a real life scenario where there's just like a bunch of like 2-bit like this 2-bit crime organization where everyone is dressed up as ninjas running around like doing like
it's so funny.
robbing like convenience stores and stuff?
I know, right? Or like stealing, or like in the first like live action movie, they're like stealing old ladies' purses. Like that's just what they do.
Such low stakes crime.
Exactly. No, it's literally just like the most like stupid stuff because it's like a kids movie. You know, you can't show like anything too dark, so they're just like stealing like Sony Walkmans and old lady purses. And then the turtles' home base is usually in the sewers of New York City, and their favorite food is pizza. I
gotta say, I feel like in every iteration of the turtles, at least the ones that I've seen, their home base in the sewers, despite being in the sewer system of New York, has always seemed like the most cozy and fun like hangout place imaginable.
Yes.
It's something about like the free furniture that they just like probably took from the side of the road, which just makes it comfy. The comfort level of a couch is inversely related to the aesthetic quality of the couch. So the uglier the couch gets, the more comfy it is. And that is just proven science at this point.
Yeah.
And they have a bunch of ugly old couches.
Their first base in the live action movie, I just watched it today, so I'm going to be referencing it a lot. I'm sorry. It was very disgusting, and I would not call that cozy. But this movie and this game, well, you don't really see the home base in the game, I don't think. But this movie, it was like, it looked like a great spot to hang out.
There's like a couple TVs. It gives off like youth group. Like here's where the youth hang out at the church.
Yes. Yeah. It's like a youth group setup. Exactly. Big wide open, like dome shaped room.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Free couches.
There's arcade cabinets for some reason.
A couple TVs to play Just Dance on.
Yes.
or some other church appropriate title.
Yes. So something that like I caught in the movie that I wanted to ask if you caught it. So this movie came out in 2007, right?
Yeah.
Did you catch that in the movie at one point Michelangelo sits down on the couch to watch TV and the news anchor is talking about the housing crisis? The housing market crisis?
Yes.
Yeah, and
yes.
I was like, oh God. Like I just PTSD hit to the chest. Like, oh, right.
I want to say that they brought up like Gilmore Girls and stuff too.
Oh, did they? I don't remember that.
I may be mistaken on this
Okay.
one. Something I watched recently brought up Gilmore Girls, which
That's
I'm
hilarious.
watching. But yeah, I thought that was funny. It was trying to be contemporary. This one's for the adults. You know?
Yeah.
Hey, how about that housing market?
Right.
Terrifying, right? Anyway. Yeah. A little bit of info on the development studio this game was developed, or the PS2 version of it, as well as everything except the DS and PSP versions of the game, including the GBA game, was developed by Ubisoft Montreal. This is notable because up until this point, all TMNT games and, stuff like that have been released by Konami. So kind of departing from that, TMNT and Konami are kind of synonymous as far as video games go. So I was surprised to see that Ubisoft was behind this one. Ubisoft Montreal, the development team, is behind a lot of really big titles in gaming, and they're still around to this day. They're the creators of Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, Watch Dogs, Splinter Cell, Rainbow Six, Donald Duck Going Quackers, and many more.
Okay.
I don't know if you realized that, but
Yeah, no, I didn't. I did
pretty
not realize
humongous
that.
team.
Yeah, yeah.
Making
Good for them.
some of your favorite games right there.
Yeah. See, that's anyway. Yeah.
Definitely not the same people, because Ubisoft Montreal is like, God, I think it's like 4,000. I think I saw 4,000 plus people.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a huge, huge studio. I don't know like how they segment those groups and or anything like that. Maybe the people who made Far Cry, or is this team? I don't know. Maybe this is how they got their start. Who knows?
That's crazy. If true.
Big if true.
Yeah.
So upon the game's release, TMNT in North America was released on March 20th, 2007, to fairly low scores from critics. The PS2 version currently sits at a 61 on Metacritic, which is, I guess, good.
It was yellow. That gives you
Yellow?
any indication.
I don't know. It's hard to tell what people rate games as. Like if it's going more off of like a, the middle is the line of demarcation between like good and bad, or if they're going off of more like a school grading system where a 70 is what is okay and then everything below that is some degree of bad.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell.
I think different sites do it differently too, which is cool. Makes Metacritic even less useful of a resource, I guess. But
Right.
61 on Metacritic. Infer from that what you will.
All right. And as far as the film went, the TMNT movie has a 41 on Metacritic, which is a lot worse than the game.
Yeah, I think everyone's a bit too harsh on the movie personally. It's sitting at a 35% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 60% audience rating, which is, I think, more in line with how I view the movie personally. Like, I think the movie is like, as a TMNT movie, as a kid's movie, it's good. I wouldn't say it's amazing, but I definitely wouldn't say it's like bad.
Well, yeah, and even like, you know how sometimes you watch a kid's movie as an adult and you're kind of like, ugh. Well, like even like as an adult watching this kid's movie, like it wasn't bad. It was just, I don't know, it just was what it was, you know?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's no like, it didn't, I don't know if it had like a ton of like appeal to like my parents, for instance, if we were to watch this, you know, during the time it came out. But as a 24-year-old, I almost said 21-year-old, as a 24-year-old watching this, vaguely interested in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it was good. It was fine. Like,
I enjoyed it.
There were some ideas that I'm like, this is pretty cool. Like the whole turtle splitting off thing. I'm like, that's neat.
Yes.
So as far as impact on the turtle universe that this, you know, short run of games in one movie had, not too long for this world. This whole like run of turtles was just the movie and the game, as far as I'm aware. There was intended to be like a trilogy, but didn't make it past the first one. So
yeah, did you catch that line in the movie where her name is Karai, the Foot Clan lady in the movie?
Yeah.
Where she like made like she had like a weird line where it was like, and you'll be meeting old friends soon. And the turtles looked at her like, huh? And they seemed kind of excited, but I'm like, who are you talking about?
I don't remember what the source was, but while I was reading up on the game on the Wikipedia page, I saw that the sequel was meant to focus on the return of Shredder and Michelangelo joining the Foot Clan.
What? What? Well, now I'm bummed. What if now I gotta know? Now I need to know.
Yeah. So, I mean, if that is the case, and that was what the plan for the movie was, that sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah. I would like to see where that goes. So, Guy, if you're out there,
come on, just make it yourself. How hard could it be? Do it for the love of the turtles, man.
Right? Even though we don't know who has the rights to those right now.
Yeah, just make it with like approximations to the characters. Like here is Donald and
Michael
and
Leonard,
Rolf.
Yeah, Rolf. That's so good. All right,
and they are the tween altered lizard
stealthy
lizards. Yeah. I wonder what the reason behind canceling like any projects with this iteration of the Turtles going forward was. Like if it was the critical reception or like if it didn't do well at the box office.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did it have a theatrical release? Because
yeah, it did.
Okay, I don't remember.
Unless I didn't look that up, but I am of like 98% certainty that it had to have had a physical or a theatrical release.
Okay.
Just seems right.
So, fascinatingly enough, the Game Boy version of this game seemed to have the highest reviews and the highest like score. I think it had like a 91 on Metacritic, and I was like, hello?
It's I mean, I played it a little bit.
Oh, you did?
Just today.
Okay.
And it's a completely different game. Does the similar thing with the story where it just kind of like is like a recap of the story from the Turtles' perspective, but doing different things. Mainly just an excuse to move from like a bunch of generic New York locations. But it's like a traditional side-scroller beat 'em up, and it looks pretty like impressive for like kind of being like this is just a movie tie-in game, and this is just the handheld version of a movie tie-in game for like previous generations of like hardware. It looks like it was fairly lovingly made. Like the pixel art's really solid, very looked like a much more polished experience than the other versions of the TMNT games.
Wow.
So,
well, good for them.
Yeah, good for them.
And then when I was like trying to look around at like how people viewed like the other like reboots of the franchise, I was seeing a lot of like really positive sort of feedback about the 2012 3D animated Nickelodeon show of all things.
Really?
And I do remember watching that when it was like airing on Nickelodeon, and I remember liking it, but also I was a kid, so like take that with a grain of salt, I guess, because kids eat up garbage all the time.
I don't know if I think I was maybe falling out of like my cartoon phase at this point.
Yeah, I kind of was too.
But I do remember it. It has like it's different than this, but it feels somewhat close as far as the art style goes. Not so much for the humanoid characters, just looking at what April looks like, but
yeah. And like the characterizations of the turtles, I think, were fairly similar. Like Donatello was like 100% a tech geek in the show.
Yeah.
Michelangelo was the fun one, and I think they had like more of a spotlight in that show than they did in the movie. So, but yeah, and what I was seeing it praised for was that it was just like fun, and the lore, like it respected like the original lore and tied it all together really nicely and was nice and cohesive. So
cool.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, because the Turtles have spanned so many generations of kids at this point that it would probably be hard to find like a definitive, unbiased sort of collective opinion on what is the best iteration of the Turtles.
Right.
We had like a 2D animated version when we were growing up, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I
have
think
some fond memories of it.
Yeah, I think that's what I got started up. So do you want to talk about your experience with or your history with TMNT?
Yeah. I have like a very passing sort of fandom of the Turtles. I feel like it was one of the things that I had like a brief obsession with as a child, but like I don't remember like really being into like the toys or like the cartoon at the time. It's probably just something I thought was cool. I probably had friends who were into it, and I'm like, oh, it seems cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing crazy. I'm not like a mega fan. I've seen the live action movies. I remember like renting those from Blockbuster, Family Video, or whatever we were renting movies from at the time. And I was like, yeah, I like this, which is interesting. I wonder how old I was whenever I watched those, because I could totally see that type of like animatronic imagery being somewhat frightening, but
Yeah.
depending on the age.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked them. I remember I only have good feelings about the Turtles, but like not like a lifelong love or anything like that.
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I was big into, I would say that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Lego Bionicles were my two biggest like all-time favorite toys. Like I loved my turtle action figures, and I had turtle action figures from several generations, because I had a hand-me-down Donatello from my cousin from like the 90s. So it was like one of like cool. The like little stubby guys. And then I had ones that I think tied into like the animated show that was on like airing when we were kids. I had some that were related to this movie. I think I had Casey. I had Casey Jones and I think Donatello maybe, or Leonardo, and a foot ninja. And I had like one of the big like sewer play sets, which I think that was from like the animated show, and it had like a couch, a ratty old couch in it, and I was like, oh, I love this. But yeah, so, and I also, mainly what I watched was the live action movies. We had all three of those on DVD, and my favorite one is the second one, The Secret of the Ooze.
Yeah. I remember, I'm just kind of Googling stuff while you're talking, and I'm like, oh, I do like remember more of the 2003, I think, was when it started, animated show. I had unlocked a deep memory that I actually had a GBA video cartridge of like some of these episodes. I don't know how many could fit on a video cartridge, but I remember owning that and watching it on road trips or whatever you did with GBA video cartridges.
Nice.
You know, before we get into the serious questions and then onto the show, how much of the game did you play? Like, what did you do preparation-wise for this episode?
I played this game quite a lot as a kid, so I have like the gameplay pretty well memorized. I did not beat it though. I got up to like the very last level. I didn't bother with the final boss fight because it kind of sucks.
It's like that gauntlet of every boss,
right?
Yeah.
So I almost.
There was a mechanic. We'll get into this later, but there was a mechanic that I didn't fully grasp, which is funny for this kid's game. But that I was just like banging my head against the wall, like, why do I keep dying at this boss fight? But we'll get into that once we talk about the combat and stuff. I played through the campaign, I finished it, and then I checked out some of the challenge maps, which are like the extra unlockable, like speed run and like arena stuff, just like combat sections and stuff, which I really like. Those are fun little. So that's a fun extra.
Yeah,
I feel like.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we both watched the film.
Yes.
For this, right?
We did.
Which is, I think, necessary to understanding the plot. Like the games explain it, but it's kind of hard to follow without having seen the film. So, I mean, you just open up and it's like, why, what is Leonardo doing?
Why is he in the jungle? What? Yes. Or South America.
Or is it South America? Oh, okay. I forgot. But yeah, do you want to move into these very important questions before we get into like the actual nitty gritty of the game?
Oh, this is so important. So which turtle are you? Who do you identify with?
You know what? I'd be curious what everyone else has to say, but I feel in my heart of hearts that I am a Mikey, chaotic, fun-loving man.
Yes.
Goofball.
Yes. I would have to agree with that. For myself, I really did identify with the Donatello scene in the movie where he's doing help desk support, because I've been there. I do that. And I do work with technology for a living. So it's like my head says Donatello, but my heart says Raphael, because
which is a very like appropriate sentence.
Yeah.
So what would that be? That would be like what's the combination of like red and purple?
Oh gosh,
purplish red.
What color is mauve?
Mauve.
Let me look up mauve.
Maybe it is mauve. You'd be the mauve turtle.
I would be the mauve turtle. Yeah. Sorry, dark mauve.
It's kind of purplish red.
Dark mauve. Yeah.
I do kind of. I feel a little bit like if I had to pick a second turtle, like I feel like Mikey is primarily how I operate, how I carry myself.
Right.
I also feel like Mikey is in some ways the glue that holds the turtles together. And in some situations, I feel like I am occasionally the glue that holds various groups of people together.
Yes.
But I also feel a little bit of Leonardo, the, goody two-shoes type do-gooder. Probably wouldn't use swear words. Maybe, although I have been using a lot of swear words. I've been letting a few flip words fly recently.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm a bit Raphael.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, the funny thing is I hadn't even considered Raphael until I think you said something to me in the Discord where you were like, "Oh, you're Raphael," and I was like, "You know what? Yeah, I think you're right."
I had like I was being obnoxiously strong-willed about everybody's turtle picks whenever I asked all of us. Yeah, you said Donatello, right?
Mm-hmm, I did.
Which is like, it's accurate. I feel like most of us would probably say Donatello.
Yes. But you've seen me rage at Overwatch, so you know.
Yeah, you're a Raphael.
Yeah.
And then Sage, who is the most Donatello.
Oh, he's, definitely, yeah.
I don't know what he said, but he was like...
No, he said probably Donatello.
Let's check it out.
Okay. That's true. We do. I'm pretty sure he said Donatello. Yeah, not really. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of Leonardos floating around in our friend group.
There was that test, and some people... Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sage got Mikey, and I was like, no. Sage is the most Donatello.
He is, yeah.
Who was Scott?
Scott is the most Michelangelo.
Yes. Like Scott said Donatello, which I get. You know, in our day-to-day lives, we all present as a Donatello.
We have to survive.
But Scott is like full-heartedly a Michelangelo.
He is the Michelangelo in the world of Donatellos.
Yes.
Or whatever. However that saying goes. Yeah.
Continuing with these very important questions.
Yes.
Morgan, if you were to become the 5th brother/sister in this group of turtles, what would your color and weapon be, and your name if you have one?
Well, now that I'm looking at my answer, I'm like, why did I put this? This is dumb as hell. It's I put down Chrome. And my weapon.
You're a robot.
My weapon is my big metal forehead.
Okay.
Because they're bald, so it's like I would embrace the Raphael rage, right? I would be this big metallic turtle, and I would bash some people,
Like how your explanation was, because they're bald. Like, do you see bald men and just think weapon? Yes. Like.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, sure. I think I see that big shiny dome, and I'm like, battering ram. Weapon. That's what that's for. Pick them up and bash in that door.
I like the idea of an android turtle.
Yes.
That could totally be like one episode of the cartoon where they just discover like an android turtle.
Or like Donatello builds him and he's like, here's my creation. He's gonna help us on missions, and then he's just like really bad and really dumb, and they're like, oh, we gotta help train this big dumb robot turtle.
What if they were like, what if it was that the robot was like better than all of them, and they're like, wait, we like they like jump into like fight the Foot Clan, and then like the turtle just like annihilates the robot turtle, just annihilates all of them, and they're just like, it's just fighting crime isn't fun anymore.
Right. And then the robo turtle is like, what's wrong, guys? Like, I'm like, this is so much fun. And then he goes like bad, and then they have to turn him off because he gets evil.
There could be another scene where they're like playing a game like they do, and the robot turtle's just like destroying them, like they're playing darts or something, and it's just like bullseye after bullseye, and it's like, what is wrong? Isn't this fun for you guys?
Oh, I love this. I love this so much. They should hire us as writers for a new show. Come on. Please.
Again, we know you're listening.
Yes.
It's all these industry people that listen to our show.
Right.
But yeah, I like that idea. My turtle, color, camo, weapon, M16 assault rifle.
What's your name?
Tex.
Okay. I like this.
I'd be the Texan turtle who comes to the Big Apple. It's like, howdy, y'all.
You have cowboy boots.
Yeah. He got cowboy boots and a assault weapon, a fully automatic assault weapon.
Yeah.
He murders the Foot Clan.
There's like blood and bullets flying, and they're like, oh my god, we don't do that here, man. Tex, this is a kid's show, Tex.
We don't even use these bladed weapons.
Right.
You just kind of hit him with the hilt and stuff like that.
Right, exactly. Oh man, I feel like the camo color would really work well with like the whole ninja thing, because like the joke about like, oh, it's camo, it's invisible, you can't see it. I feel like there's some good comedic potential in that. So,
oh man,
yeah.
Speaking of the bandanas, I think aesthetically one of my favorite things about the turtles is like whenever they go serious mode, they just have white eyes.
Right? Oh, I love that. It's like an anime thing, like the glasses are shing. Yes, very good, very good.
Big fan, big fan. All right, shall we get into the campaign of the game at hand?
Yes. All right.
All right, take it away.
Let me give a brief overview of the story. So the story itself is told as a flashback where each turtle and Splinter sort of serve as the narrator at various points. And sort of like the story is delivered to you at the beginning and sometimes at the end of each level with like a comic book style cutscene that explains what's going on and sort of like what the objective of I don't know, it explains whatever they're trying to do. And as you're playing the level, the turtles will chime in and either react to things in the moment, or there'll be like some sort of like flashback narration over the gameplay. And sometimes those two things will clash.
Often.
Yes. So like
I believe they were using clips from the movie, but I'm fairly certain they weren't using sound from the movie. So it was all like recreated like Foley and stuff, which was strange. Did they have the same voice actors as the movie? They sounded like very close approximations, if not.
I'm fairly certain. I wonder. Oh, that would be kind of a pain. I mean, you could look it up. I'm pretty sure they got. Well, there were some characters. So like the game is pretty much just Splinter, I think, and the Turtles. There's no Casey. There's no April.
Right.
Not
even in cutscenes. Nothing.
Yeah. The villains have like some like very short. Does Winters ever talk in the game? I don't think he does. I don't remember. Winters was voiced by Patrick Stewart. So
there's that one scene where you meet him in the hallway.
Okay.
But other than that, yeah, the plot is extremely hard to follow if you're only going off of the game. I played the game. I played like the first 2 levels of the game before I watched the movie. And thankfully I read the manual before I jumped into the game, because I would have been lost, because the manual gives you like a brief synopsis of like what's going on. They're like, the turtles have disbanded, Leo is in South America, Raphael is like this vigilante man, masked crusader type person, so that helped. But within the game it feels like a kind of poor summary of what is like the events taking place. So
yeah.
I just wanted to say, when you said comic book styled cutscene, I had that's like a trigger phrase for me now, because in like my reviews of I think Infamous and Sly Cooper,
they both do the same thing.
I've said those 4 words together like 1,500 times. It feels like, and I just could not think of because like I'm repeating myself. I'm trying to like think of bust out the thesaurus and try to find new ways to say the same thing. Just like between editing it and writing those like reviews, I was like,
that phrase,
comic book style cutscenes really improves on the comic book style cutscenes. Like I couldn't get around it, and it's just like ingrained in my head. So
yeah.
You're welcome.
You're welcome for that.
One of my triggers.
Okay, sorry. Just like activated. You're like a sleeper cell, and I just activated you or whatever. What was I gonna say? Oh, yeah. The game does take some twists and turns that the movie just doesn't. Like I'm trying to think of, like Donnie discovering like the leopard crazy hair guy in the sewers or whatever. Stuff like that. Yeah. Or
just Michelangelo's whole thing with like
the party elevator jumping on the top of the parade balloons thing,
stuff like that.
The whole flashback sequence where Shredder is actually a boss in this game, but he doesn't make an appearance in the movie. I actually like that a lot, and I like those levels a lot. But anyway,
it kind of makes sense, and you could almost pass it off if you wanted to, be kind of like, this feels like a writer response. They're like, yeah, it's a little bit different than the movie because they're kind of, it's how they remember it, and they're like inserting events that didn't necessarily happen, but it's what they remember, and it's like 4 competing memories of the same event, kind of like conflicting. I don't know. Maybe that could be like an explanation. It was probably just because they didn't have the full script to work off of, or they wanted to like have these moments that just weren't in the game or weren't in the movie, so they had to just like write a reason for them to exist, like the Shredder thing. Yeah.
Well, and like in the game, so like in the movie, there's a point where Leonardo, I think, gets kidnapped because he and Raph have like a disagreement. And Leonardo is not rescued in the movie until like they go in for like the last big fight or whatever. In the game, you go to like this weird cave thing where they have Leonardo locked up. And then you rescue him from there, and then you just have him with you through the end. So that's like a big difference. But I mean, that makes total sense from like a game adaptation standpoint. Like you can't just, I don't know. Yeah.
Also the exposition of like Winter's, like the main plot of the movie is kind of just brought up in the last section of the game, maybe the last level or second to last level, when you meet Winters and he's like, here's all this crazy crap that's happening.
There is a point where like you go as Raphael as the Night Watcher and break into the tower, Winter's tower, and you kind of get some insight then, but yeah, it's mostly saved for the end.
Which I kind of wonder, like maybe they were given like the outline of like, here's how the movie is going to go. And then maybe in like test audiences for the movie, they initially had like that exposition that's at the beginning of the movie more towards the end. And people got confused because, to be fair, the plot it's a little strange.
Yeah.
As a story, so
the whole art. Sorry, when you say the plot, do you mean both the game and the movie, or which one are you talking
about? The movie mainly. I mean the game obviously, but the movie.
Yeah.
Like the whole like these warriors were stonified.
Well, and it's not like the warrior thing. If it was just the warrior thing, I don't think that would have been too like confusing. The confusing thing was the 13 monsters thing.
Yeah,
because it just felt like, okay, the monsters are the bad guys, but so are these generals. And then there's the foot here too, and they're kind of bad. So it's like, what thing do you want to... They should have removed probably the 13 monsters.
That feels like a weird, like the number of them, and then like the fact that they just gloss over almost all of them.
Right? It's just like a montage where they just like catch a whole bunch of them and shove them in these little pod things. And then you're just like, okay.
Strange.
Yeah.
If you want to do the monsters, maybe just have 4 to line up with the amount of stone people.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and then like that, the monster thing created the whole dilemma where it's like, oh, they kidnapped Leonardo and they're going to pretend that he's one of the monsters to trick Winters. And then you're like, what are we playing, 4D chess? Huh? No. It's a kid's movie.
I feel like the reasoning could potentially be like rooted in the comic books. Like maybe this was a comic arc.
Could have been.
And they wanted to stay as true to that as possible. So they kept the 13 monsters and all that. I don't know. Also, I feel like I know people kind of, for franchises that get rebooted a lot, people are like, oh, do we really need to see Spider-Man's origin story again? Do we need to see Batman's origin story again? Do we need to see the Turtles, getting all oozed and growing up all weird and stuff again? I get that, but like I feel like for kids stuff it makes more sense to like just kind of start off like that, because I've also heard that there's a scene at the end of the movie that implies that this is like the 4th movie following the 3 animated movies.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's at the end they like take Winter's helmet. That's the only thing that's like left of him because he turns to gold dust. And they put it on a shelf in their hideout, and Shredder's helmet is there. And so is the time travel staff thing from the 3rd live action movie.
Right.
And then I think there were some other things there, but I didn't recognize them. So I
think Donatello put his little
Michelangelo
mask up there.
Yeah, Raphael put
Michelangelo, his like big head thing up there. Yeah. I just feel like the first Turtles thing in a reboot should focus on Shredder personally. Like maybe you could skip like covering like how they, were baby turtles and got all oozed, but I feel like starting with Shredder is just,
it feels
it's
right.
like a solid like inoffensive plot. Like it's just like, hey, he bad man. He got to kill bad man. He do bad things.
Right. Focus
more on the turtles and not have this weird, complicated like trying to revive these beasts or my friends so we can all die. Plot is strange.
Well, especially like like they wanted this plot to be the start of like another trilogy. I don't know. I do respect its efforts to like continue the original like 3 live action movie. Like I respect that a lot. But I think if you wanted the like support to get a full trilogy out there, you probably should have started with something a little bit more grounded, a little bit safer.
A little safer. Yeah.
Anyway.
If we were to change anything specific, like about how the story is written, other than what we mentioned already, anything stand out to you as like a rewritable moment?
Like I said, I think they should have, instead of, like I said, they should have redone something, did something about the 13 monsters chunk.
Yeah.
That was the thing that just seemed like a weird. It threw off the balance of everything and like made it so that you wasted so much time with these monsters that are relatively inconsequential that you don't get to like know the actual villains all that well. The actual villains being the 4 generals. Like they don't really have any, like hardly any screen time in the movie or in the game, really.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the start of the premise for starting, and like all the turtles are like spread across the world almost, and like Leonardo's in some other country and Raphael's like doing his own thing, and Michelangelo's starting a business. I feel like this is kind of the vibe I get from most Turtles stuff, is that it's focused more so on Leonardo and Raphael's characters, like dynamic characters that evolve and change, whereas Donatello and Michelangelo feel like they get the short end of the stick when it comes to like narrative stuff and character development. And that was, I think, felt in this iteration of the Turtles as well, where Michelangelo and Donatello are doing like IT work and Michelangelo's just running like a party business, whereas Raphael's like this vigilante crusader, got this cool like outfit and armor, and it's like a major plot point of the movie. And Leonardo's like in South Africa, like doing a bunch of cool stuff.
South America.
Actually,
I think it might even be Central America. Oops.
It's not even south.
Yeah, I think it just might be central. Oops.
Both the wrong direction and continent.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I really wish that they spread the love a little bit more with these two dudes, because I feel like they're underexplored.
Yeah. Well, and based on what you mentioned earlier about having read about how a second movie would have focused on potentially Michelangelo joining the Foot Clan, it sounds like that was like a plan coming down the pipe, which could have been fun. Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that all of the Turtles should be, it's kind of hard to approach all at once because there's 4 of them, but I do agree that they should have something dynamic going on. They should have a character arc, and they should all have growth. Whereas in this one, it just felt like Leonardo and Raphael's relationship was what was broken and what had to be repaired, and the other two kind of didn't really matter.
Which I get, it's a tight window to tell a story, like
especially for a kids movie
or whatever. Yeah. So I get that it's challenging to like incorporate all 4, but I feel like these 2 characters are constantly kind of cast to the side in favor of Leo and Ralph. I said Ralph.
Yeah, you did.
Just as an idea, I feel like Donatello could have, like, if we're doing like a dark sort of like, because it feels a little darker, like Leo's off doing his thing, he's maybe murdering people, I don't really know, and Ralph is going crazy.
Crazy Ralph
is going crazy. Every time I say Ralph, I think of
Wreck-It Ralph,
or no, I think of Rolf.
Oh, Ed and Eddie.
Ed
boy. Yes.
Ed boy. Yeah. I feel like Donatello could have been like hear me out on this, like a Sombra like hacker.
A hacktivist?
Maybe a hacktivist. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So like a white hat hacker. Maybe he's taking down criminal organizations through like hacking and stuff like that. I don't know how I feel about that personally, like if it's entirely fitting his character, because he's not like the lone wolf, like go be a vigilante like Ralph is. But maybe it'd be fitting if you wanted to give everyone like a little bit of badass sort of reimagining. I feel like Michelangelo's the only person you couldn't like go crazy with. Like I feel like he would have to just be sad that everyone's gone or something.
Yeah, I do think the party business angle where he gets to put on a big stupid head and gets beat up by kids, I feel like that is a very Mikey thing.
It is.
As far as like a character arc for Donatello, this is something we actually brought up earlier in the episode. I feel like a good thing that you could do with Donatello is his, like, he relies on, like, technology, right? And then he makes something with the technology, but then it was a mistake. And then the Turtle brothers have to help him fix the mistake. Like the big chrome android turtle, where it's like, oops, your technology got out of hand. Now I have to go fix it. Like, that could be something that could, I don't know, give him more relevance.
Like a darker universe of the Turtles where Leo is like no longer the leader and Splinter is dead and Raph is just like off on his own doing his Night Watcher thing. Maybe Donatello is like become part cyborg.
Oh my god.
Or something like that. No.
Yeah, he has like a glowing brain glass skull cap thing going on.
Yeah.
He put zeros in his name instead of the O's.
Don.
Yeah.
D0 on a telephone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you got anything else to say before we get into like the moment-to-moment gameplay?
Nah. Let's jump in the mechanics.
Let's jump into it. Give me a general overview of the platforming.
Movement in this game is most of your like standard platforming stuff. So you like run through a level, you're jumping off of buildings and doing all these crazy parkour stunts. So you are jumping over gaps, you're wall running, wall climbing, wall jumping. Each turtle also has like a unique ability to help them traverse environments. And this ability is typically introduced in a level where you are just controlling that one turtle. And then when you're controlling multiple turtles, you can do like I just call it a teamwork action. I don't know what it's actually called in the game.
Oh, what is it called? I think it's called a family move.
Okay. You can use a family move when platforming to make like a big jump. To clear like some really big gaps if you want. So like I said, each turtle has their own like special traversal move. So Raphael has Raph's power climb, which he basically uses his size to stab into brick walls and then scale them. Mm-hmm. Donatello has a long jump with his staff called Don's bow vault. That's clever, I guess. Michelangelo can glide using his nunchucks, and it's called Mike's nunchuck helicopter. Also creative.
A bit more straightforward.
Leonardo he has a magic amulet, and so he can phase through walls, but only specific
walls. That was the weirdest one, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, like chain link fences and stuff.
Chain link fences and prison bars.
Prison bars,
and that is called Leo's shadow warp.
He can phase through compromised walls.
Yes.
Speaking to like the platforming specific or traversal specific turtle mechanics, most of them, or specifically Leonardo's and Raph's, feel much lamer.
Yes.
In comparison to Donatello's and Michelangelo's. Like Michelangelo's and Donatello feel like alternate movement mechanics that are not, I don't believe there's any point where they're necessary, but they do kind of lend themselves to a certain play style. Maybe in like the character specific introductions where there's like a big gap that you have to use this to clear.
Yes.
But like going forward, I don't think there's any gap that's like too big or anything that you need to switch to one of them to do. Raphael and Leonardo, that you'll be playing through a level and you'll get to a point where it's like, press the Leonardo button to go through the wall.
Exactly.
Or press the Raph button to climb this wall for.
And it's like glowing red or blue depending on what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, which is kind of lame. It's just like press a button to continue. Switch to this character and then press the button.
Mm-hmm. So it's not really gameplay, is it?
Yeah, it would have been cool if they were like similar to Donatello and Michelangelo, where they're largely optional, like maybe preference-based movement mechanics. Maybe there would be a fun way to chain them together. I don't really know. I gravitated towards Michelangelo for the sections where I was able to control whoever I wanted for that helicopter glide because it just felt the safest.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like the glide so much just because it's so slow.
It kills your momentum and stuff. Yeah. But due to the fixed camera, if I jump down the list a little bit, it's a little bit like Crash Bandicoot, and then it operates off of like a fixed camera that moves, it follows the player and like, positions itself in certain ways as you progress through the level. So it'll be like behind you sometimes, off to the side sometimes, and make it feel more like a side scroller, or like Crash Bandicoot, sometimes it's a running towards the camera sort of situation. But the fixed camera, again, like Crash, kind of like messes with your depth perception a little bit.
It does.
There's like a shadow and stuff that you can rely on to like line up your jumps, but there's certain sections where just the way the level's laid out and where the camera is, it's very difficult to tell how you're lining up your character to the platform you need to reach. So Michelangelo was kind of like my fallback plan on that. Like I can just hover and like readjust.
Right, yeah.
So
yeah, you also mentioned this problem with the side scrolling section where if you were too close to a wall, you would accidentally engage in a wall run when you just wanted to jump. I think that was what killed me the most in this game, was just accidentally like sticking to the wall and then falling down to my death. I'm like, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, because sometimes you just mean to do like a little jump and you grab the wall and then you just start riding it towards your death. Yeah. It's because so I think every movement mechanic other than like that brother throw is mapped to the cross button, X button.
Yeah.
And that leads to just a lot of missing, because it's all contextual. It's like if you're by a wall and you press X in the air, you won't do a double jump, you'll just grab the wall. Or if you're next to a wall, just jump off of it if you're not moving and stuff like that. Personally, I dub this as the Assassin's Creed problem, because it's the problem I just associate with Assassin's Creed, where it's like, I just meant to walk through this door and now I'm climbing the building.
Yep.
And stuff like that, where it's too many actions mapped to one thing and you just get a lot of misinputs. So you start out, like we mentioned, by playing as like the individual turtles. I think it goes through like Leo, Raph, Michelangelo, Donatello, and maybe not in that order, but just like one level for each character, and you get introduced to like their special move, except for Leonardo. But past that point, it's a lot of like, you get to play as every turtle. And this is a single player game, if we didn't mention that already, which is maybe worth mentioning because most Turtles games are co-op. I feel like because of how the game is structured, it maybe would have made more sense to have each level be tailored to and only have one playable turtle, and maybe like expand their movesets accordingly. Like,
Yeah.
maybe they control slightly different. Like because you control all of them at the same time in certain levels, they maybe have to feel the same. I would have liked the turtles to be more different as far as gameplay, like combat as well as platforming, and then have each level kind of tailored to that specific turtle.
Right. Or you could like trade off between turtles like halfway through a level. Be like, oh, and then you like catch up with each other and like
Yeah. Like, oh crap, we need to,
go open this door for me.
Yeah. Something like, we need to ride a skateboard or something. Go Michelangelo.
Yeah.
Something like that where it would help vary the gameplay a little bit, because the platforming feels very, very, very samey after a while, mainly due to the level design. But having turtles with different mechanics, like 4 turtles with like different platforming capabilities, I think would have benefited the game's sort of like diversity problem when it comes to the gameplay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I would agree with that.
Want to move on to the combat?
Sure. Yeah, so the combat is very button mashy, very much a beat 'em up, and it rewards you for avoiding damage. So each of the turtles kind of have a unique combat style that's based on like their weapons.
Yeah. So it's like the weapons have different properties, like attack speed. I don't want to say fire rate because it's a like a bow staff, but like Donatello's like slow, but he has like a lot of reach. Michelangelo doesn't have as much reach, but he attacks really fast and doesn't do as much damage. I think Raphael does the most damage. I don't know if there's a difference between playing as the Night Watcher and playing as Raphael, aside from like the ultimate thing. But I want to say that they had like Night Watcher had like a special move. I think that he threw the Sai, and I don't think Raphael threw the Sai. But I may be mistaken on that.
I know that like default Raphael does, he like, because you know how, so as you're like fighting with the turtle, and if you keep mashing the button, they sort of like build up a combo where they get like this like glowy outline around them, and then at the end they have like a sort of like special move. And Raphael's, no, I think the Night Watcher will like run at them and then like side slash them and like sort of like spin and like tackle them at the same time. You know what I mean? Or is that just the Night Watcher, or does actual Raphael also do that? Because normal Raphael does do the throwy thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember.
I think they really should have just treated them like the same character. It's a little confusing.
It is.
Because they're the same person. Leo's is like he spins the sword.
He like throws he like sticks them together and then like throws them around him, and they do like a big sweep around him. And
Donatello does like a little spinny kick with his bow staff.
Yes, and then Michelangelo, I hate Michelangelo's, if I'm being honest. I don't like to fight with Michelangelo specifically because he does like he gets down on the ground and does this really long spin attack. And you move really slow, and enemies can like stun you out of it. It's not very good.
No, I also avoided him for that reason, especially like during like damage phases on bosses and stuff like that. Yeah, he was probably my favorite for like a minute because I'm a Michelangelo at heart, but I quickly got over that.
But yeah, so like for my experience, I found that Leonardo and Raphael felt pretty balanced in terms of like damage and like how fast they attacked and sort of like their reach. And like we said, Donatello is really good at keeping enemies at a distance, and Michelangelo does not do a lot of damage, but he's good for like singling out an enemy and then just stun locking them and like backing them into a corner. Donatello is probably my favorite to fight with just because of his reach. I also gravitated towards Donatello. I was Leonardo at first because he had like a combination of like reach, but also like it felt like a lot of damage, or like a high attack speed and stuff like that. But I just like Donatello towards the end because you get like these spear guys. The amount of enemies is not incredibly varied. It's mainly like you'll have like a melee dude, and then you'll have like a sword. You'll have a slightly smarter melee dude who knows how to block. And that gets annoying.
Yeah. There's a couple different factions that you fight, and some of them have unique like archetypes of
the purple dragon
enemies. The gang guys. They had one that just like threw stuff.
Acid.
Right?
Yeah, he would like throw acid or something. Or
just something smelly.
I don't know either.
You think they'd be immune to that, but Yeah, he was the one that threw acid. So there's like some ranged people. There was one that was like an archer. There was one dude who had a gun in South Africa and stuff like that.
Central America.
Central America. I think one of the more interesting ones that you run into later is like this commander sort of enemy who summons other...
The whistle guys.
The whistle guys,
they whistle.
Yeah. And they also throw shurikens.
Yes.
Pretty limited, though. I mean, it's mainly just melee attackers who all attack with just varying amounts of range. Like, there'll be, like, a spear guy who can reach you from further away and stuff like that. Getting into, like, the move set that you have available, I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's really just, like, reading through the manual. Mm-hmm. But you're limited to, like, a kick and then, like, your weapon. And each of those have like a special version of it if you hold it down. But other than that, it's just spamming those 2 buttons. You can do like a ground pound if you jump, but that's kind of like worthless majority of the time. Unless you're trying to like avoid an attack or something like that. You can do a super family attack, which is like a big special move whenever you're playing with multiple turtles, which I didn't figure out until the end of the game. Because you had to use it at the end of the game. Anytime, because like while you're playing as one turtle, another turtle will just be like, hey, let me help you out. And it's like Donatello plus square or something like that at the bottom of the screen. And I was like, square. And then just like switches to Donatello. Yeah. It's like, I guess I did it. But you're supposed to hold it and you do like a special move.
You like charge it up in your Super Saiyan mode and you unleash it.
I think it's contextual depending on like what situation you're in.
It depends on...
So I didn't use it right.
It depends on which turtle. So if you are playing Donatello... For example, his is you take his bow staff and your brother comes in and grabs the bow staff with you and you slam it down on the ground and it shocks everybody and it stuns everybody for a second. I don't remember. That was like the only one I used because it was the most useful. I don't remember the other ones.
Yeah, I don't remember them because I wasn't using them right.
Oh, I think it was either Leonardo's. I think it might have been Leonardo's where you would grab your brother and fling him into enemies and that was like a one-hit KO on the enemies. I think Michelangelo, you would swing your brother around by the ankles and beat people up with him that way. And then I don't remember anything else.
At the final boss, there's like 4 phases,
yes.
I think, of the final boss. And you literally just use the family move that it tells you to at the right time. Okay. Is basically how the final boss works. Okay. So you cycle through them all there.
Yeah. I remember the boss giving me a lot of trouble as a kid because I don't think I could figure that out. Like, I think I was just trying to beat him up with square.
I also did that at first.
Yeah.
So the final section of the game, you go through a gauntlet of every boss that you fought. And most of them are fairly simple. Like, just jump away to dodge when they're about to attack you and then attack them while they're standing still. But there's like a big dude with this hammer and he has like one attack like halfway through his boss fight where he slams down his hammer and it just like... It's like a little floating arena, basically, and it, like, pushes you off the arena. And I kept getting that, and I'm like, am I just, like, not understanding where I'm supposed to stand? Am I supposed to jump over something? I don't know what's happening. Like, is it a shockwave or something? So I looked it up, and you're supposed to, like, use the family move while he's charging up that attack and stop him.
Stop it. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's when I found out how to properly use them. And the same thing happened with the final boss where I was just trying to like wail on him and it wasn't doing any damage. So I looked up the final boss on YouTube and it was just like, yeah, just hold square and then it's like half his health is gone. You do a special thing and it's like, oh, then he moves over here and it's like use square, half his health or, a quarter, I guess, of his health is gone every time you do it. So
I mean, thematically, a bit
more straightforward.
You're supposed to
it's cool,
beat him with teamwork because you're brothers and
teamwork,
all. Yeah.
But it is just kind of like hold square to beat the final boss kind of thing.
Yeah. Better than Scalar. Scalar's was hell. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
That was fun. And you don't lose your dad in this one. Yeah, combat's fairly simplistic. The only other thing we didn't mention, but you have a block. I don't think I ever used the block.
I didn't know that I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, all of the triggers and bumpers were dedicated to blocking.
Oh,
like
okay.
Yeah, I think you had to like time it right.
Dark Souls? No. Is this Dark Souls?
Dark Souls? This is the Dark Souls. Okay, I'll make that the YouTube title. The Dark Souls of TMNT? Teenage Mutant Dark Souls of Turtles?
Dark Souls of Turtles, that's so good. Did we mention the power-up or the one-hit KO mode?
No.
So if This doesn't really apply or in boss fights. It only applies outside of boss fights. If you kill 10 enemies without taking a hit, you enter this sort of like super power mode, ult mode, I don't know what you want to call it, where the star gauge that you filled up by killing enemies ticks down, and when that gauge is active, you can kill enemies with one hit. It's possible to keep the star gauge like pretty much all the way filled if you can kill enemies fast enough. And then Raphael, when he's the Night Watcher, he has sort of like an alternate version of the same thing, where it's like a rage bar, where as long as you're doing damage, you can fill up the rage bar. And then when that gets full, you can unleash like a giant screen wipe red blast of angry energy. And then you can continue to like kill enemies with one shot afterwards. But you can initiate rage mode without filling up the bar. You just don't get the screen wipe attack. So it has its uses.
So you play as Leo and then the Night Watcher. So seeing that each of those turtles had like a unique special ability thing, I was kind of disappointed to see that, whenever you play as Michelangelo, Donatello, and regular Raphael, that they all have the same, like, kill 10 enemies to get, like, a superpower thing.
Yeah.
Because it made me think that each of them was going to do something unique. And I get why they did that, because they have those sections where you play as all of them, and you can switch between them. But I think it would have been cooler to give, again, to my point of differentiating the turtles even more, to give each of them like a unique sort of ultimate ability thing and like way to get that. If I were to pitch, an idea for how it would be handled, I think Leo's should stay as like the getting 10 kills without taking a hit thing. Kind of fits his personality. He's a bit of a perfectionist. Yes. Raphael's is very appropriate, just calling it like the rage meter. It's all about doing damage. It's very good. Can be activated at any time in like the scream that just kills everybody. I think Michelangelo's with his like how rapidly he attacks people, some sort of like combo based like trait. I don't know if it like leads him to like an ultimate sort of like mega spin or something where he just like spins around and knocks everyone out. I don't know what Donatello's would have been. I don't really have an idea for his. But
yeah, I don't. Nothing is.
Maybe it's like an EMP and maybe he turns the lights off.
That's for you, Zach. Zach, if you're out there, no.
And we know you are. You're listening alongside of Jeff Keighley and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, creator and all those
exactly.
people.
Yeah, I don't know if blocking was more of a thing, because like the bow staff seems like it would be very handy for blocking. Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe he'll just like spin it in a circle.
Oh, and he can like parry all enemy attacks.
Like he becomes like kind of like invincible almost for like a short.
Well, you could do like the Orisa spin where you knock back people.
Yeah. So there's a couple moments where you're fighting on ledges and
you can't knock them off. I don't think.
Yeah, I didn't think, but you could in the arena mode, which was, it made me like second guess myself. I'm like, could you knock people off in the game? And I just like wasn't lining it up.
I guess they won't. They won't slide off.
That would have been nice.
Yeah. Environmental kill. Nice. Then you can play the game. Anyway.
Yeah.
Tell me about the level design.
As far as platforming goes, I feel like this is a big weak point of the game. The platforming challenge doesn't really evolve throughout the entire game. It feels like a flat line of difficulty from start to finish. And also they don't do like any sort of building upon like ideas or challenges. Typically for like platformers and stuff, really any game, this is kind of like a universal principle. You like will introduce a mechanic or an obstacle and like at the start of a level, and then you'll like slowly build upon it in like kind of safe and learnable ways. And then like you'll end the level with some sort of like crescendo of like, oh, do all these things together because you slowly learned it throughout this level or whatever. Like maybe the gimmick of the level is like using Donatello's bow staff to like clear gaps and stuff like that. And then you like chain it together on like some falling platforms or something like that. I don't know. But it was because of like the fairly limited mechanics and movesets. You didn't really build on it. Build on the level design throughout the game, just kind of very samey. Really leans on like the amount of like the game, it feels like it's longer than it needs to be. And I feel like a lot of the padding comes from the amount of fights that you get into. Like there's a timer throughout every level. So it's like a time trial type thing if you want to approach it that way. And there's certain levels where I was just like 15-ish minutes, and I'm like, this level doesn't need to be 15 minutes long or anything like that. They're just like back-to-back arena fights, and neither the combat nor the like platforming was, I mean, obviously it wasn't very challenging to us because it's more of a kid's game, but like it didn't feel like there was any evolution to any of the ideas that they presented throughout the entire game. So, and you know, if they did introduce some new mechanic, it was kind of limited. So,
what was your favorite level? Do you remember?
I don't know. I think if I picked a favorite level, it would be more because of the aesthetics of the level than the platforming or anything. I preferred being in the sewers for some reason, and that level with the parade floats was fun.
Yeah,
that was pretty fun. But the one where you're going through like Chinatown,
that's my favorite. I think it's Oh Brother Where Art Thou. It might be level 11. But yeah, that one's my favorite, definitely.
Yeah, and again, to me, it just comes down to the aesthetics. It's like, oh, we're going through something.
We're going through
visually
Chinatown instead of a sewer. Instead of gray, it's more red. Ooh.
Speaking of aesthetics, unless you have anything to add to them.
No.
Yeah. This is a very gray and brown game, and it feels like a sort of product of its time.
Well, the movie is also pretty...
It's kind of dark. But, yeah, it's just kind of depressing, and I feel like Turtles is supposed to be a bit more... And I get it, because they had like... It was a little dark, a little bit darker of like a tone and everything, but like with what was happening to the characters and all that. But I feel like it should be more colorful. Like Turtles should always kind of be more fun than... At least in the way it's visually presented, because it's feels like a modern, or like a contemporary, like shooter or something where everything's like dark and gritty.
You know what would have been fun? And I don't mean to trigger you again with the comic book.
Cell shading?
Yeah. Well, no. Well, yes, that I agree with that. Also, you know how like in Sly Cooper, where specifically in Sly 2, if you kill an enemy, the like comic book sound effects pop up where it's like blam, wham.
Yeah.
If you like, when you kill enemies, that would have been fun.
That would have been sweet.
It would have been cool.
I think like framing this as like a comic book, maybe not this game because it's trying to look like the movie, but like if you're making a standalone Turtles game.
Lean into it. The comic books,
yeah.
Lean into them.
I feel like cell shading is like a fairly timeless, if, you know, done well, obviously, but it's a fairly like inoffensive art style, and I feels like can be done at a lower budget and look pretty polished. So I'm a big fan of it. And I think it'd make a lot of sense for Turtles.
Yes, definitely.
We could talk about this if we want to or not.
The repetitive voice lines, there are voice lines.
And they do repeat
and
themselves.
they might get stuck in your head. Oh, right. Here's Johnny.
Again, I think I mentioned this. What game did I mention this with earlier? Where like the sound was annoying to my wife. But
was it? I know that Chulip had some sounds that were annoying.
It was Chulip, yeah. She's like, this game sounds annoying. Yeah. This game also sounded very annoying to just be in the presence of. Because it's just like constantly repeating these same like 5 voice lines per
it's
character.
Not the sound effects and it's not the music. It is strictly just the voice lines. Also, something about the sound effect for when you die is like this really trumpety, brassy, and that can, if you keep failing the same jump over and over in quick succession and you keep hearing that brassy noise of like, you died, oh no, panic, it can get really annoying, really frustrating.
Our heroes have been defeated sort of sound.
Yeah.
That I agree with that. I don't know how this got okayed, frankly. Like throughout QA, like did anyone bring up the fact that they say the same like 5 things over and over again?
I don't know. Yeah.
Like it's like you'll hear repeating things definitely within the same level, like just constantly. And especially when it's like it's not just saying all right, which is you should have like a couple variations of that if you're just going to say like, yeah, we did it, you know, just like a grunt basically. But the here's Johnny thing and like some of the more elaborate voice lines is just like
what does Michelangelo say? Totally awesome, super sensationalistic, bro. I think that's something that he says.
Yeah, something
a lot.
Yeah, like these kind of phrases I feel like should be much more limited in how much they are spoken.
Yeah. Maybe something short and also only happens when you enter their special ult mode. That wouldn't be that bad.
Like, more contextual like that. Maybe every time you start a level as Raphael, he says, "Here's Johnny," as he jumps into frame or whatever.
Yeah.
It's so weird too, because that's just like a phrase that doesn't.
It lost its cultural relevance. Wait, sorry. Is the Raphael question? Is the Raphael "Here's Johnny"? Is that referencing either The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, or is it The Shining, where the guy busts open the door with an axe and goes, "Here's Johnny"? Which one?
See, I feel like, and this may date myself, I feel like The Shining is kind of co-opted that phrase. Granted, it was obviously in the context of the movie, it wouldn't make sense unless it was a reference to something else, because his name is not Johnny. But I feel like The Shining is what that phrase is associated with more than The Tonight Show at this point. Personally,
because I grew up knowing more about The Tonight Show than I did about The Shining. I've never seen The Shining. I only knew the Tonight Show reference, but I was like, what? Wait, this is a kid's game. Which thing are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't know. They could have just, maybe they're just saying words.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe the voice actor popped in the booth and his name was Johnny.
Yeah.
And he said, "Here's Johnny," to introduce himself.
And they were recording the whole time.
You need to use that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, so that's all I got to say about the aesthetics. I guess the amount of voice lines is an aesthetic choice. Sure, why not? Extra content. I love to see extra content. That feels like a sort of bygone thing from this era that, I don't know, it's fun. To be like, hey, here's some funny big head modes. It's got big head mode. I don't know if this is the first game we've discussed with a big head mode.
I think it might be.
It may be.
Yeah.
I feel like we should write that down. That's like an interesting statistic to have in the future.
Big head mode award goes to this game.
It'd be so funny to hand out awards for this.
Yes.
Oh man.
Best worst game. Chulip, here you go.
Like, a lot of these studios are defunct, but like tracking down the people at these studios and they're like, "We gave you an award.
Send them
the year of our Lord 2023."
Send them a fruit basket or something, or like an Amazon gift card. Be like, "We loved your game." From like,
you won an award. Yeah. Or like we send it to like the ATV devs.
Yes.
Or the ATV versus MX devs. MX versus ATV, never mind. But we're like, "Here's an award," and it's like, oh, how sweet. A small outlet gave us an award for our most recent game, and it's just like ATV Off-Road Fury for the PS2.
Best soundtrack. And they're like, what the that would be very good.
Did this get lost in the mail?
For like 20 years.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That would be fun.
We'll look into that.
I'm sure you can find some of these people on like Twitter, right?
Yeah. I kind of, this is a bit aspirational for the show, but I would love to talk to like a developer from the time.
I would have so many questions. It would be so much fun.
Nick Robinson had the video where he showed off Spider-Man, like the modern Spider-Man, to someone who worked on the like, not original, but like PS2 era Spider-Man, maybe the first Spider-Man game. I don't know. But someone who worked on a previous Spider-Man game and kind of like interviewed him about the process of like creating Spider-Man at the time and stuff. That was really interesting.
Yeah.
And aspirations for the show.
Yes, definitely.
Maybe not for the show, but for like some sort of piece of side content.
Yeah, or the show, whatever. Hey, if you're listening and you're like, I want to talk to you about, please, for the love of God, please. We want to talk to you.
I can't talk to Morgan anymore.
I can't stand him anymore. The extra content. Let's get back into that, shall we? So there are collectibles in this game. There are shells and there are coins. Shells are sort of hidden around the level, and I think they're only collectible on a second playthrough. Is that correct? Because I remember seeing them and not being able to pick them up at first.
Yeah, there's like a couple coins every time. I didn't play through it again, so I'm not sure if they would have appeared on a second playthrough. I thought, that was my first thought, like, oh, maybe there's a second playthrough thing, or maybe they're like a get through the level without dying and you can collect this thing. I don't know which one it was, because I didn't stick around and figure it out.
Anyway, so I think, but coins are collectible on your first run through. And then if you complete a level with a high enough score, which your score is calculated based on how fast did you complete the level, how good were you at combat? Like, did you do the combat sections without getting hit or taking a lot of damage? Do you have a high count coin? Count coin.
I like.
Do you have a high coin count, rather? And do you have a high teamwork rating? And then based on that, you are awarded more shells for finishing the level and doing a good job.
I always failed on the levels that had teamwork.
Yes.
Because
You
I
have
didn't know how to use.
Yeah, you have to spam it a lot.
You have to use it at like every opportunity.
Yeah, it's really, it's kind of annoying actually to do. Coins can be generated also by killing enemies with like the teamwork attacks with your brothers that you didn't know existed. But the coins will disappear after a short time. And then shells are the currency that's used to buy bonus content like concept art or movie scenes, or like, here's the prototypes for our new toy line, our new merch. So it's like marketing wrapped up in the bonus content. There's no escaping the capitalism. Anyway. Also, if you beat a level with a high enough rating, you will also unlock the bonus level, which is like the platforming segment, or like the combat segment. And then if you beat the bonus level within a certain amount of time, you get even more shells. And I'm pretty sure you have to collect all the shells to get all the collectibles. So it's very hard to complete 100%.
I did like the challenge modes. I feel like that's a very fun sort of unlockable extra.
I like those too. Yeah.
All right. I mean, got anything else to add?
No.
All right. So this game, similar to most movie tie-in games, has a fairly like complicated release system where there's like multiple versions spread across a bunch of different systems. So the PS2 version is the same as the GameCube, the Wii, the PC, and the Xbox 360
This is on PC?
It's on PC, yep.
That's weird.
Yeah, looks great on PC and Xbox 360. The GameCube and Wii versions seemed like they had kind of smeared graphics, which is a little strange because both the GameCube and the Wii are more powerful than the PS2 technically. So, but whatever. The Wii version out of this group had some exclusive pointer mini games. So that's the thing if you want it. I believe that you had to attack by
swinging,
wiggling the controllers.
That's awful.
Which was, that seems exhausting. Strangely, I whenever I saw this lineup of PS2, GameCube, Wii, Xbox 360, I was like, why is there no original Xbox? Why is there no PS3 version? They were planned, but they were canceled. And I'm going to blame that damned Cell Processing for losing us yet another game on the PS3.
No.
Yeah. Can you imagine if it was just like, it was on the PS3, but it had like all the same problems like Skyrim had, where it was like, the longer you played the game, the longer your save file got, the harder it is.
That was wonderful. I played Skyrim. I would like just suffer through the flickering blue beige textures like you wouldn't believe because I was such a crackhead for that game. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. That's it. That game is like, that is the game people point to, I think, when they talk about like how the PS3 was kind of difficult to develop for.
Yeah.
Or like port things to specifically. Like if you developed a game specifically for it, you could do a lot with it. Like a lot of the PS3 like exclusives looked pretty impressive compared to Xbox 360, but trying to port things to it, it was like we can't get this to work at all. And I feel like Skyrim is like the one people point to, but it should really be TMNT because it didn't even show up. It was so hard. Outside of the I guess the main version of the game, there's a PSP and DS version, which from what I could tell are largely the same as each other, with differences based off the fact that the DS has 2 screens and the PSP is more capable hardware when it comes to like 3D rendering and stuff. So they look the same. These are also the ones that were developed by a different studio. I don't remember which one though. The Game Boy Advance game, weirdly enough, was still developed by Ubisoft Montreal, and is a completely different looking title. You have here that it scored well, and you mentioned.
Oh, I did say it got a 91. I lied. It got an 80. Oops.
Oh, dang it.
My bad.
Yeah, because I intentionally moved it down here because I was like, I think it makes more sense down here. But yeah. Anyway, scored higher than the other versions, and maybe rightfully so. It seems like a very like well put together, polished 2D beat 'em up pixel art sort of thing. Maybe I'll take a look at it. It's on my little Game Boy, hacked Game Boy now, so I could play it if I wanted. But yeah, it looks really clean. I can see why people like this one more. It doesn't pull too much inspiration from the movie in the same way that the other ones do. It seems like a bit more generic as far as like, it's just TMNT stuff, but I only played like the first level, so can't speak fully to that. It was mainly like guided by the cutscenes, like screenshots from the cutscene of like, hey, we did this, similar to how the version that we played is. But yeah, Morgan, you got to experience, you messed around with the emulation of this game. Let the record show Morgan legally owns this game, as we do with every game that we attempt to emulate, without exception. Yeah, Morgan, how's the emulation?
I think this game, from what I can remember, it's like it emulates very well. I do think I had some frame rate dips in, I feel like when bosses showed up, maybe during like the little spiel speeches they give, and also maybe in like some of the more like larger chunks of the levels. Like I feel like I was seeing some frame rate dips for the parade section of Michelangelo's level. But other than that, perfectly fine. No issues.
So this might have been hard to eyeball, but do you think that you were getting like 60 frames out of it, or was it more like
I have no idea.
Yeah. So whenever I was looking at like footage comparisons between the different versions of the game, I saw that the PC and Xbox versions were running at like a higher frame rate.
Okay.
Like when they were compared side by side, it was very easy to tell that it was like, oh, that's way smoother. So yeah, I don't know. I'd be curious if the emulation was actually running like well, and maybe for like the cutscenes dip back down because it's maybe a pre-rendered joint. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, Morgan, do you recommend this game?
I have a lot of nostalgia for this game because I played it a lot when I was a kid, so don't mind my nostalgia goggles. I personally think it is decently fun for what it is. Don't expect a ton of like depth with the combat or the story or anything like that, especially because this is for children, so it's not very hard.
No, yeah.
I do think the environments are fun. It does give you like a good enough glimpse into what it's like to be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle because you're running around on rooftops all the time and punching people or whacking people non-lethally. And I will say, however, the like bonus levels are actually pretty darn difficult. So it is kind of challenging to 100%. Overall, I would recommend this game. But if you're a turtle fan, I guess, or if you have interest in the franchise.
In the Turtles. Yeah, I think that's my sort of like qualifier for whether or not I would recommend this game to someone too, is like, if you like Turtles, I think you get enough fun turtle action to like justify playing a fairly simplistic kids game. But if you're not into Turtles, first of all, thank you for making it so far into the episode. If you're just like, man, I hate turtles, but I love these two idiots. Yeah, I don't think it's for non-turtle fans because it doesn't do too much special with platforming or with like the 3D beat 'em up elements of it to really warrant, I think, a playthrough. It's mainly the Turtles sort of nostalgia / fandom that carries it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Morgan, I think the Turtles are a very interesting franchise.
Yes.
And I think they lend themselves to a lot of different interpretations and potential like, spin-offs / games and movies and stuff like that. If you had free reins with the Turtle IP, what direction would you personally like to take them in?
Okay. I have a couple chunks of my notes that are dedicated to this question. So my initial thoughts were, okay. We know the Batman, Arkham, whatever games. There's Arkham Asylum.
We got the Batman. We take them and we match them with the
I don't think we can do that. So instead of like, it's like Batman, the Batman Arkham trilogy or whatever the heck it's called. But instead of Gotham, it's like a chunk of New York City, right? Because that's where the Turtles are based. Another fun idea, another fun thread to pursue could be something more stealth-oriented, a la Dishonored, right? So you could be doing turtle assassinations, but not non-lethal assassinations because it's for kids. Anyway, do you want me to move on to my pitch?
Yeah, just treat this like one big segment.
All right, hear me out.
Yeah.
All right. So for my plot pitch, what I would want to see is the Turtles have done such a good job at defeating crime. Like, they've done too good of a job and are bored out of their minds because there's nothing left for them to do. Raphael is going bonkers because he has no more criminals to beat up until there is a new villain, never before seen, that arrives in New York City and breaks open a high security prison that is holding all of the other bad guys that they've thrown in jail. So then it's like a sandbox world where each villain controls a sector of the city and you can beat them in whatever order you'd like. And then I realized, wait, am I just making another Far Cry game? And I think I might be. I also realized that's kind of what Infamous did, except you couldn't really do it in any order. But it's a good formula, right?
That's my point too. So I think it's interesting that you based yours kind of like off of Batman, because in my head I'm thinking like, okay, what would a so TMNT I think its niche is like 2D side scroller beat 'em ups. Like there was that new game that came out recently, everyone loved it, Shredder's Revenge, because it was like a 6-player like arcadey beat 'em up, and that's kind of like the main thing I think Turtles are known for when it comes to video games. But I do feel like there's a lot of potential for this IP to exist in a sort of like modernized, like open world 3D, like action platformer thing. And my first thought was Spider-Man, because I'm like exploring New York, and Spider-Man's sort of like at the same level of like tonally kind of fun, but also serious at points. So that was kind of where I jumped off of. I feel like if you base the game off of like, you know, a Far Cry like approach where there's like a bunch of like outposts, like maybe like gang hideouts and like pizza places to hit up.
Yes.
Just like a bunch of like things scattered on a map. If you have like a fun movement system and combat system to like hook people and like create a fun gameplay loop of like, okay, I'm having fun moving around the city to get to a place where I beat people up, and then I move around the city and find some way to beat people up. And maybe you know, have like a very like distinct play style for each turtle. But I feel like an essential part of all Turtles games should be the co-op. Like I feel like Turtles needs co-op. Like it is what the franchise is. So like having a single player Turtles game doesn't really sound all that appealing to me. And I think that like an open world, kind of like Far Cry 5 where there is that co-op.
There's an option at least.
Capability. Yeah. I think it'd be fun to have like, you know, get four of your friends together. You're playing as your different turtles. Maybe you main a certain turtle. I don't know. Maybe that could be if you differentiate them too much and someone's like, I hate playing as Donatello.
Oh yeah, then they have to.
Then they have to. Maybe that could be a weird sticky point, but I think that'd be fun.
Yes. And I was thinking this talk has given me another idea. So you know how like in Sly Cooper, right? There's the different missions that are geared towards specific characters, right? And then you have like your hideout. Go back to your hideout, play with your turtle boys, swap one out for the other, run back out into the world and go cause chaos. That would be a lot of fun. I would like that a lot. I'd buy it.
I think that'd be sweet.
If you're listening.
You know, I'd buy it too. Let's get some of the best developers in the world on a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle 3D open world.
In the year of our Lord 2023, it's about to be, so.
Yeah. Probably not going to happen. They've cemented themselves, I think, in like this sort of like retro indie market.
That's fine.
Seemingly. I mean, they do well there. Shredder's Revenge is a good game. One more point I would like to make is that if there was like an open world exploring New York thing, I think that to make it unique to the Turtles, I feel like there would have to be a significant, like, an intricate sewer system.
Yes.
So, like, underground exploration and stuff like that. And maybe, like, the premise of the game is, like, maybe the Turtles aren't too, you know, well respected. Maybe the police aren't too happy with them or something like that. A little bit on the fringes, you know, vigilante and stuff. So they kind of rely on, like, a stealthy sort of aspect. They got to be, like, in the rooftops or in the sewers or something like that.
I like this a lot. Yes.
All right. I mean, so that's our Turtles pitch. Feel free to steal that, talented game developers. We know that all 4,000 of you at Ubisoft Montreal are listening. It's time to revive the Turtles. Free the Turtles. We know that you're locking them up. You got the IP locked up in a vault somewhere.
Let them out.
Time to release it. So I think that concludes everything that we have to say about the Turtles.
All right. So tell me, what are we covering next month? I'm so excited to know.
So next month, in preparation for the release of Hogwarts Legacy, hopefully it does not get delayed again, because I think it's been delayed once already. That would kind of suck if we planned an episode around it and then it's just get delayed like next month or something. But Hogwarts Legacy is releasing on, I don't remember the exact date, but it's in February. And to kind of, I don't know, tie into that, we're going to be doing Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which is potentially the first Harry Potter game. I kind of have a sneaking suspicion that some of the Harry Potter games were released out of order of the books. So maybe it's the first one, maybe it's not. I don't know, but we're going to play it. Got anything to say about Harry Potter? Flipendo. Maybe I'll reread the book for this as well. I feel like we are like diving into like this like multimedia sort of thing where we're like watching the movie and then discussing the game as well.
I'll probably just watch the movie.
Yeah. Do you have like any, is that like a thing for you, Harry Potter?
Oh, yeah. I had a Harry Potter phase 4th through 6th grade probably was when I was most into Harry Potter. Yeah.
So were all the books out at that point?
I think so. I think maybe the 7th one had come out shortly before I got into them. Maybe.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Okay.
I remember reading through the 7th one, I think in 5th grade or 6th. Somewhere around there.
Yeah. I read the first book like twice. Not to get into my tragic backstory, but I struggle with reading. But I've read the first book twice, and I made it like halfway through the second book like 3 times. So I downloaded like all of them through Audible, and I listened to all of them very intently.
Is that sarcastic, or did you actually? Okay.
No, I loved them. I was all into them. I maintained a relatively spoiler-free existence when it came to Harry Potter, other than that one spoiler that everyone knows that's like Luke, I am your father levels of like ubiquity amongst like pop culture. Other than that, stayed relatively spoiler-free, didn't really know what was going to happen. And I made it through the whole series, and I'm like, I love this premise and have some problems with the execution.
Oh, I'm excited to hear about that. Yes. Yeah.
The first book, if we're just talking about the first book next week, I'm a big fan of. First book is like probably, if I had to rank them, it'd probably be like second favorite or third favorite, because it's like a solid, like, it's a fun children at school adventure. Tonally, the books definitely change into more like melodramatic stuff, but early on, it's like, hey, fun kid adventure. Yeah. So, more into that.
Right.
Thank you for listening to the show. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Please support the show by leaving a review or feedback on whatever platform you'd like to listen on. We release a new episode of Analog Shtick on the 2nd of every month, so subscribe if you want to hear more in-depth discussion of 15 years old children. I messed that up, whatever. If you want to hear more discussion about very irrelevant games, hopefully it's nostalgic for you. If not, what are you doing here?
But we love you anyway. Please stay.
Yeah, thank you for listening. Please stay. Yeah, that's all. Morgan, you got anything?
No. Chrome Dome Turtle. I'm still on. I'm all about that.
Still on the Chrome Dome Turtle. Want to pimp anything to the 5 people that probably make it this far?
I have nothing. I have nothing worth pimping.
I do nothing. Don't look for me.
Yeah, don't come looking for me,
please. Yeah. All right. That's it. Thank you for listening.
Bye.